Babysitter story time part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, please go watch it. It's on my page. It has all like the background and the context. So let me set the scene. So at the time, I'm 4 months old. Me and my family are from a pretty small town. I had just recovered from the surgery from the intestinal issue I was born with. I got that surgery at 3 months old. My mom was just starting to go back to work after my surgery. I have a sister who is 6 years older than me, so she was in kindergarten. I forget the exact date. I believe it was like early March 2005, but this particular day, my mom took me to my babysitter's before she had went to work, obviously. My babysitter wasn't at like a normal daycare. She ran a certified in-home daycare, which meant she kept several kids at her house. She kept 5 kids total. There was me, 2 other babies, and then 2 school-aged kids. Mom also helped out, but it was mainly her. Legally, I know I cannot say her full name, but other than that, I don't really care. So her name was Kim, or is Kim, which is why if you hear me make any jokes about Kim, she's who I'm referring to. So I just want to add in, this woman lived in my small town and also kept my sister before she started going to school. So like, my family knew her. This wasn't just like a random person. The story's a little difficult because I can't say it in chronological order because we actually don't know exactly what she did. All that we know from what happened in between the time that my parents dropped me off to when they picked me up is what the injuries showed and what they can assume happened. As absolutely infuriating as it is, she only ever admitted to an incident and never went into any details, so I'll get more into that in a minute. Basically, she babysat me that whole day. The incident occurred at some point, and then my parents picked me up. She handed me back to my parents and said that I was napping, and of course my parents didn't question it and were just trying not to wake me up. They got me home, put me in my crib, and they didn't want to wake me. Until a little while later, I'm not exactly sure what amount of time, my mom heard me get sick on the baby monitor. So my mom comes in and she sees me laying there with my eyes rolled to the back of my head and I was completely limp. Sorry, I just have to move it lower. So she obviously picks me up. Of course, they're freaking out. They call an ambulance. Like I said previously, we're from a small town, so the only ambulance we had was on a call, and they said it would be about 30 minutes. Originally, my parents were just gonna try to wait it out, and then they were like, no, something's wrong, and they took me to the hospital themselves. Once I'd gotten to the hospital, I was conscious again. And the doctors examining me just chalked it up to a virus and that I had whatever virus was going around at the time and that everything was fine and that they just needed to give me some stomach medicine and I would be okay. I can imagine by that time I looked much more normal than when my mom had found me in my crib. The doctors were pretty dismissive. They were like, she's fine. Babies get stomach viruses. It's not a big deal. I guess just like mom intuition because she was like, no, something is wrong. Get her an MRI right now. Like, I'm not leaving here until we get an MRI. So they finally did an MRI, and the second that it came up, CPS was called, and my parents pretty much didn't see me again for like 6 weeks. I literally have it all listed right here so I don't misspeak as to what they all saw in the MRI. I'm gonna do that in the next part so it's not too long.